The desert night was calm, the stars above shining like tiny fires in the sky. Farmers in the valley were finishing their work, fishermen at the coast were pulling in their nets, and children in the cities were still awake, watching television. Life on Earth looked ordinary. No one knew that, far beyond the black sky, something enormous was moving toward them. A single satellite operator was the first to notice. He was sitting alone in a control room, half asleep, staring at screens filled with numbers. Suddenly, the lines shifted. Strange signals appeared, pulses that didn't belong to any human craft. He blinked, leaned closer, and the blood in his face drained. Dots began to fill the screen. 1, then 10, then hundreds. They were not natural. They were ships. His hand shook as he pressed the alarm. Across the world, red lights came alive. Defense stations in America, Asia, and Europe lit up their boards. Messages flew between governments faster than lightning. In less than an hour, every leader on Earth knew something alien was entering the solar system. First, there was silence. Then a message broke through, carried on frequencies that touched every device. Every phone, every radio, every screen. A voice, sharp and cruel, filled the air. "We are the Dominion," it said. "We come from the stars. You will kneel. You will surrender your weapons, your world, and your people. If you resist, we will erase you." The words spread like fire. In homes, families stared in shock. Some cried, others prayed. In restaurants, in offices, in crowded streets, people froze as the broadcast echoed. For the first time, humanity knew they were not alone. And the first greeting they received was not friendship, but a demand for slavery. In a high-security base, the world's generals gathered. Some shouted to prepare for defense. Others whispered of surrender. But one man stood silent, his back straight, his eyes cold as steel. Finally, he spoke, and the room quieted. "They believe we are weak," he said slowly. "They believe we will fall to our knees. But they do not know us. They do not know humanity." Meanwhile, inside the alien flagship, the commander of the Dominion smiled cruelly. His fleet stretched behind him like a sea of blades. To him, Earth was nothing more than another stone to crush under his heel. He had conquered 100 worlds, slaughtered billions, and always heard the same sound, the begging of the weak. He expected Earth to do the same. But when the Dominion sent their demand again, humanity answered. A voice came from Earth, clear and fearless. "This planet is not yours. If it is war you want, war is what you will receive." The alien commander's smile widened. "So be it," he hissed. "Let their world burn." Back on Earth, preparations began at once. Nations that had fought for decades dropped their quarrels. Old enemies shook hands. Borders mattered less than survival. In factories, machines roared as weapons were built day and night. Scientists dusted off secret projects, hidden away for fear of politics and cost. Now, nothing mattered but survival. Ordinary people felt the weight of fear, but also something else, unity. Soldiers trained without sleep. Farmers donated food for the armies. Engineers worked until their fingers bled. Humanity had been divided for centuries, but under this threat, they became one. Still, the fear was real. People remembered history, colonies destroyed by empires, small tribes wiped out by stronger nations. Now humanity itself was the small tribe, and the Dominion was the empire. Yet deep inside, there was something the aliens could never understand. Humans did not break easily. One evening, as the city lights shone below, the general stood on the balcony of the command tower. He watched children playing in the distance, mothers carrying babies, fathers walking home tired from work. All of them innocent, all of them unaware of the storm rushing toward them. His jaw tightened. "They want war," he muttered under his breath. Then louder, to his officers, "Then we will give them war. Not just war, we will give them annihilation." The officers stood straighter, their fear slowly turning to fire. Above the planet, the alien fleet moved closer, arrogant and unstoppable. They believed this world was already theirs. They believed no one could stand against them. But they had made one mistake. They had awakened humanity. The first threat had been spoken, the first demand made. But instead of bowing, humanity rose. The night sky remained quiet, but beneath that silence, a storm of resistance had already begun. The Dominion thought they were hunters circling weak prey. They did not know they had just stepped into the lion's den. And soon, they would learn that Earth was not a world that begged. It was a world that fought back. The warning of the Dominion spread across the world like a storm. Every radio, every television, every phone had carried their cold voice. Some people cried in fear. Others locked their doors as if wood and metal could protect them from the sky. But in hidden rooms, deep under bunkers, a different fire was rising. Humanity had been challenged, and humanity was preparing. In a secret military base buried under mountains, leaders of every major nation sat around a round table. They were men and women who once argued over borders, trade, and power. But tonight, they were silent, their faces pale from the threat above. The general who had first spoken against surrender now looked at each of them with firm eyes. "If we fight separately," he said, his voice heavy, "we will lose. But if we fight as one, we can make them bleed. The choice is yours." One by one, the leaders nodded. Old enemies extended their hands across the table. For the first time in history, Earth was not divided into nations. It was united as one world. Factories that once built cars now built armored tanks. Shipyards that made cargo vessels were turned into war docks for starships. Scientists were given free hands, no restrictions, no politics. Old projects, kept secret in dusty files, were reopened. Weapons that had been only drawings on paper were now being built in steel. In crowded labs, engineers worked day and night. Their eyes were red, their hands shaking from too much coffee and too little sleep. But they kept working because they knew time was short. One scientist whispered to another as they tested a new energy cannon. "If this works, it might be the only thing that saves us." Meanwhile, soldiers trained harder than ever. Rain poured on the fields, mud clung to their boots, but they did not stop. They crawled through trenches, ran with heavy packs, fired weapons until their arms ached. Some collapsed only to be lifted by their comrades. They were not just training for a war, they were preparing for survival. In cities, ordinary people also played their part. Farmers gave food to the armies. Miners dug deep for rare metals. Engineers volunteered to work in dangerous construction zones. Even children collected scrap metal, sending it to factories. Everyone felt the weight of the coming storm, and everyone carried it together. But while the world worked, fear still lived in the shadows. At night, families whispered, "What if they are too strong? What if we can't stop them?" Mothers held their children closer. Fathers stayed awake staring at the dark sky. Fear was everywhere, but so was resolve. In one quiet town, a teacher told her students, "Remember this. Humanity has always been underestimated. They thought we were weak when we had only sticks and stones, but we built cities. They thought we would break in world wars, but we rose stronger. Do not fear the enemy. Fear only giving up." Back in the alien fleet, the Dominion commander received reports of Earth's sudden activity. His officers laughed. "They build weapons as if it will matter," one sneered. "They are ants trying to fight giants." But the commander frowned. He had fought many worlds, and none had resisted so quickly. Still, he shook the thought away. "Let them prepare," he hissed. "The more they fight, the sweeter their destruction will be." On Earth, the general watched the skies from his command post. His officers brought him updates every hour. Factories were running at full speed, armies were growing larger, and ships were being tested. Still, he knew it might not be enough. Late at night, he stood alone in the war room. Maps of Earth glowed before him, along with holograms of enemy positions. He whispered to himself, "We are not fighting for land or power. We are fighting for existence itself." In another part of the world, deep underground, scientists finally finished building something they had worked on for years but never dared to reveal. It was a massive ship, unlike anything humans had ever flown. Its armor was thick, its weapons stronger than any before. The project leader smiled weakly. If the Dominion thinks we are ants, this will show them our bite. The preparations were endless, but the people carried on. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every drop of sweat was given for one goal: survival. And slowly humanity changed. They were no longer many nations, no longer strangers divided by borders. They had become one people, standing together against a sky filled with enemies. As the alien fleet moved closer, Earth did not bow. Earth built, Earth trained, Earth prepared. The Dominion had expected fear. What they were getting instead was something far more dangerous: determination. The Dominion fleet finally moved closer, their shadows stretching across the cold surface of Mars. Their plan was simple: strike first, destroy a human colony, and force Earth to surrender without a full war. It had worked on a dozen worlds before. The commander believed it would work again. The colony on Mars was small. Families lived in domes of glass, connected by tunnels of steel. Scientists studied rocks, farmers grew food in red soil, and children played in zero-gravity gyms. Life was fragile but full of hope. None of them knew the Dominion had already chosen them as the first victims. High above, alien warships uncloaked. Their black hulls blocked out the stars. Weapons charged with a deadly hum. One officer on the flagship smirked. They won't even know what killed them. But this time the Dominion were wrong. The humans had been preparing. Secretly, without broadcasting it, they had placed defenses around Mars. Underground silos opened, revealing missiles that had been hidden for months. On the colony surface, armored turrets rose from the sand like buried beasts awakening. In orbit, human warships uncloaked as well. Smaller than the alien giants, but fast, agile, and ready. The first shot came from the aliens. A beam of white fire tore through the sky and struck a Martian dome. Glass exploded. Air rushed out. Alarms screamed. Families ran for cover, their faces pale with terror. But before the aliens could fire again, the humans answered. A wave of missiles shot into space, leaving trails of fire behind them. They flew straight into the enemy fleet. Explosions lit the darkness like suns being born. 3 alien cruisers broke apart instantly, their hulls splitting into flames and twisted metal. The Dominion commander's smile faded. "Impossible," he growled. The battle had begun. Human warships darted between the giant alien vessels, firing torpedoes and lasers. They were smaller, but they moved like wolves attacking a bear. Every time an alien ship tried to lock its weapons, humans struck from another angle. Explosions blossomed across the fleet. Down on the colony, soldiers fought on the ground. Alien dropships landed, spilling armored troops onto the red soil. Humans met them with rifles and courage. The air filled with dust, gunfire, and screams. One young soldier, barely out of training, held his ground even as alien machines advanced toward him. His voice crackled over the radio. "For Earth! For Mars!" In the command center, the general watched the battle unfold on screens. His officers shouted reports. Losses on both sides, heavy damage, civilians fleeing to shelters. But the general's face stayed calm. He had expected this moment. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Make them pay for every step." And pay the Dominion did. For every human soldier who fell, 2 aliens followed. For every ship destroyed in orbit, another alien vessel burned. The enemy had thought it would be easy. Now they realized humanity had teeth. On the flagship, the alien commander slammed his claws into the armrest. "They are only humans. They should not have this strength." An officer stammered, "Commander, their weapons are primitive, but their tactics, they fight like they have nothing to lose." The commander's eyes narrowed. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not arrogance, but a cold whisper of doubt. Back on Mars, smoke rose above the colony. Buildings were shattered, the ground littered with wreckage. Yet the humans did not retreat. They fought in every street, every tunnel, every shadow. A mother carried her child through fire while soldiers covered her escape. A miner, armed only with a drill, charged an alien soldier to protect his friends. Ordinary people became warriors because survival demanded it. And then the moment came. From behind Mars, a massive shape appeared. A ship unlike any other, gleaming with silver armor and bristling with weapons. It was humanity's hidden card, the prototype dreadnought, rushed into service even before testing was complete. Its engines roared, its cannons charged, and when it fired, the sky itself seemed to split apart. A single blast cut through the alien flagship's shields. The commander staggered as alarms screamed. Officers shouted warnings, sparks rained down, and for the first time, the Dominion flagship shook under human fire. The humans cheered across every channel. Hope surged like lightning. The general smiled grimly. "Now they know," he said. "Now they know we are not prey." The battle raged for hours, neither side willing to retreat. But the first clash had already given its answer. Humanity would not kneel. Humanity would fight. When the smoke finally cleared above Mars, dozens of alien ships were gone, and the survivors limped back into deep space. Mars was wounded, its people scarred, but it still stood. And that was enough. The Dominion had expected to crush ants. Instead, they had faced lions. And somewhere deep inside, they now feared what would come next. The Battle of Mars had ended, but the scars remained. Half-broken domes lay scattered on the red soil, families mourned their dead, and smoke still drifted into the thin Martian sky. Humanity had won its first true clash, but everyone knew the Dominion would return. And next time, they would come with more power, more ships, and more rage. On Earth, leaders gathered again. The general who had stood firm from the beginning addressed them. His voice was calm but heavy, carrying the weight of truth. "We hurt them," he said, "but hurting them is not enough. The Dominion will not stop until we are ash. We need something greater, something they cannot imagine." The room fell silent. Then one scientist, an older man with tired eyes, spoke quietly. "There is a project. Hidden, secret even from many of you. It was meant only as theory. But after Mars, perhaps it is time." The leaders leaned forward. The scientist placed a chip on the table. A hologram flickered to life, showing a massive ship design, larger than any vessel humans had ever built. Its hull was plated with experimental alloys, its core powered by a new reactor that could unleash unimaginable energy. Its cannons were designed to pierce even the strongest shields. "This," the scientist said, his voice trembling, "is Project Titan, the dreadnought that could turn the tide of war." The leaders whispered among themselves. Some doubted. Some feared the risks. The ship was unfinished, untested, almost impossible to complete in time. But the general's eyes burned with steel. "Then finish it," he ordered. "We no longer have the luxury of waiting." And so, Project Titan became humanity's highest priority. Deep beneath the oceans, in hidden shipyards carved into the rock, workers labored day and night. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and soldiers gave their sweat and blood to the task. The half-finished frame of the dreadnought hung in the water, a giant skeleton waiting for life. Every bolt tightened, every panel welded, every circuit connected felt like a race against death. Above the ship, massive cranes moved like titans themselves, lowering weapons larger than buildings into place. The core reactor, glowing faint blue, pulsed with power. Workers stared at it with awe and fear. It was energy they barely understood, energy strong enough to crack a planet if mishandled. Meanwhile, spies from the Dominion watched from the shadows of space. They sent reports back to their commander, whispering about a human weapon under construction. The commander laughed when he heard. "Let them build," he said. "Their toy will not save them." But deep inside, the commander remembered the fire of Mars. He remembered the impossible courage of humans. And though he would never admit it, a cold unease had begun to stir in his chest. On Earth, soldiers were chosen for the dreadnought's first crew. Men and women from every nation, hardened by training, united by survival. They stepped onto the half-built decks with pride. One young pilot ran his hand across the unfinished wall and whispered, "We'll carry the hope of all humanity." The general visited often, standing on high platforms to watch the progress. He spoke few words, but his presence was enough. Everyone working on Titan knew they were not just building a ship. They were building Earth's shield, Earth's sword, Earth's future. Days blurred into nights, nights into weeks. The Dominion fleet grew closer, their scouts already testing human defenses. Skirmishes erupted in the asteroid belt, small clashes meant to weaken Earth before the storm. But humanity refused to break. Each battle bought more time for Titan's completion. Finally, the day came. The skeleton had become a beast. The incomplete frame was now a fortress of steel. Its cannons gleamed. Its engines thrummed like the heartbeat of a giant. The workers stood back, sweat on their brows, tears in their eyes. After months of endless labor, Project Titan was alive. The launch was silent at first. Then, with a deep rumble, the dreadnought rose from its cradle beneath the ocean. Water poured off its sides like rain. Waves crashed in every direction. And as it broke through the surface, sunlight struck its silver armor, making it shine like a new star. Across the world, cameras captured the moment. People in cities, villages, and colonies watched with wide eyes. They cheered, they cried, they prayed. For the first time, hope was more than words. It had a shape, a body, a weapon that could stand against the Dominion. In the command tower, the general allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Now," he said quietly, "let them come." But hope was not victory. Titan was powerful, yes, but untested. Its core had never faced true battle, its weapons never fired in a real war. And the Dominion was not slowing down. Their full armada was on its way, greater and deadlier than before. The stage was set. Humanity had built its hidden weapon, a dreadnought to defy the stars. But the question remained, would it be enough? The launch of Project Titan gave humanity hope, but hope alone could not stop the storm. The Dominion did not retreat after Mars. They returned with fury. Their main armada entered the solar system like a swarm of fire, thousands of ships covering the black sky. They had not come to test. They had not come to threaten. They had come to destroy. The first strikes fell on the asteroid belt, where human outposts and defense stations were hidden. Alien cruisers swept through, unleashing beams that tore entire rocks apart. Dozens of human patrols were lost in hours. Yet even as they fell, those small ships bought time. Every minute mattered for Earth's defenses. On Titan's bridge, the general stood tall. The dreadnought was now fully armed, its engines humming with power. Around it, smaller human fleets gathered, ready for the coming war. Officers reported losses, but the general's eyes never wavered. "They want us broken," he said. "Then we will show them what it costs to break us." The brutal stage of war had begun. The battles spread. In orbit around Jupiter, fleets clashed in silence, only the fire of explosions breaking the darkness. Human ships darted between the gas giant's moons, using its gravity to slingshot into ambushes. Dominion warships, larger and stronger, crushed many, but not without losing their own. On Saturn's rings, the battlefield turned strange and deadly. Shards of ice became weapons as both sides fired through the frozen debris. Human torpedoes tore apart alien escorts, but the Dominion responded with weapons that vaporized entire sections of the rings. The once beautiful arcs of Saturn turned into burning scars. Civilians across the system suffered the most. Colonies were bombarded. Mining stations were destroyed. Families huddled in bunkers, listening to the distant thunder of war shaking the ground above them. For every battle won, humanity lost something precious: lives, homes, dreams. Humanity's fierce resistance. But humanity did not stop. They adapted, they learned, they grew more dangerous with each fight. Soldiers fought in ruined stations, crawling through smoke and fire. Pilots turned their small fighters into missiles, sacrificing themselves to tear holes in alien battleships. Engineers worked in the middle of chaos, repairing ships while alarms screamed around them. Stories of bravery spread like wildfire. A squad on Europa held a frozen bunker against 3 times their number, refusing to retreat until reinforcements arrived. A single pilot near Neptune lured a Dominion fleet into a trap, giving his life to save thousands. These acts of courage kept humanity alive when logic said they should have fallen. the Dominion's frustration. On the alien flagship, the commander grew restless. He had expected Earth to be ashes by now. Instead, the humans fought harder with each battle. His officers brought him reports filled with words he despised. Resistance, ambush, losses. These creatures are nothing, he roared. Why do they not break? No one dared answer. But deep inside, the commander already knew. Humanity was not like the other species they had crushed. These were not people who surrendered easily. These were people who would fight until their last breath. Titan enters the war. When Titan finally moved into battle, the war shifted. The dreadnought was a monster in space. Its cannons cut through enemy shields like paper. Its armor absorbed punishment that would shatter smaller ships. Wherever Titan appeared, Dominion fleets hesitated. In one battle near Uranus, Titan led the charge. Alien warships surrounded it, firing everything they had. Explosions burst across its hull, but the dreadnought did not fall. Its cannons roared, turning the void into fire. A single blast from its main weapon split an enemy battleship clean in half. The human crews cheered. For the first time, the Dominion realized what humanity had built. And for the first time, the alien commander felt fear. The cost of victory. But Titan could not be everywhere. The Dominion struck across many fronts at once, forcing humans to fight on broken ground. Victory came, but at a price. Colonies were lost, soldiers buried, ships shattered. In one dark moment, the Dominion bombarded a human station without mercy, killing thousands of civilians. The screams echoed across communication lines before fading into silence. On Titan's bridge, officers lowered their heads, their fists clenched. The general's face hardened. "This is not just war," he said. "This is survival. We cannot afford mercy. Humanity hardens. War changed humanity. They grew colder, harder, sharper. Songs of hope turned into vows of vengeance. Every fallen colony, every burned city, every lost life added fuel to the fire. Humanity had once fought for freedom. Now they fought for total eradication of the enemy. Even the civilians began to speak differently. A mother who had lost her family whispered to a soldier, "Do not stop until they are gone. All of them, gone." The Dominion had wanted war. They had wanted to see humans bow and cry. Instead, they had unleashed something terrifying. Humanity was no longer just defending. Humanity was beginning to strike back. The war had turned brutal, and the Dominion was about to learn the most important lesson. When pushed to the edge, humans did not just fight, they destroyed. The war had dragged on for months. The stars themselves seemed scarred by fire. Everywhere in the solar system, wreckage of ships floated like silent graves. Humanity had paid a heavy price, but still they stood. The Dominion had come to crush a weak world. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. Now the tide was turning. On Titan's bridge, the general watched the endless stream of reports. Battles won. Fleets destroyed. Human losses, yes, but fewer than before. The Dominion's power was breaking, little by little. His jaw tightened as he gave the order that would change everything. "No more defense," he said. "No more waiting. It is time we end this war." The officers looked at one another, eyes wide. End it? Could humanity truly end something as vast as the Dominion? But the general's voice carried no doubt. Humanity was done surviving. Now they would erase their enemy. The counterattack begins. The first target was a Dominion supply fleet near Pluto. Human warships struck with brutal precision, leaving no survivors. Then came the bases in the asteroid belt, each one destroyed with fire and steel. In every corner of the system, the Dominion began to collapse. But humanity did not stop at defense. The general gave the command that shocked even his own people. "We take the war to them," he said. And so, Titan and its fleet jumped into alien territory. For the first time, human ships crossed into systems the Dominion had ruled for centuries. They did not come as explorers or diplomats. They came as executioners. The Dominion falls. World after world burned. Alien strongholds were leveled, their proud fleets shattered. Humans who had once looked at the stars with wonder now looked at them with fury. Soldiers carried no mercy in their hearts. Civilians cheered each new victory, not with joy but with grim satisfaction. On one Dominion world, alien soldiers dropped their weapons and begged for mercy. The human commander gave none. His words were simple, cold, and final. You wanted war. Now you live in it. The executions were swift. The Dominion had taught humanity cruelty, and now humanity used it against them. The fear spreads. Across the Dominion Empire, fear spread like a plague. Whispers traveled faster than light. The humans were coming. Entire colonies fled before a single human ship arrived. The thought of resistance faded, replaced by the desperate need to survive. The Dominion commander, once arrogant, now raged in silence. He watched his empire collapse battle by battle. His claws dug into his throne until blood dripped from them. How? He hissed. How can a race so small bring us to ruin? No one dared answer. His officers knew the truth. Humans were not small anymore. They were a storm, and nothing could stop them. Titan's wrath. Project Titan became the symbol of humanity's vengeance. Wherever it went, destruction followed. Its main cannon erased fleets in single shots. Its missiles carved through planetary defenses. To the Dominion, Titan was no longer just a ship. It was death itself, carrying the will of Earth. In one final push, Titan led the fleet into the Dominion's capital system. Alien defenses filled the sky, thousands of ships waiting. But humans did not hesitate. The battle was like nothing before. Fire, smoke, and silence broken by screams across the void. One officer on Titan whispered, "This is not war. This is extermination." The general heard him, but he did not flinch. His eyes remained on the screen as alien ships exploded one after another. "They chose this," he said. "We only answered. The capital burns." The Dominion capital was a shining jewel, a world of towers and lights. The humans reduced it to rubble. Orbital strikes rained down. Cities crumbled. Oceans boiled. Billions screamed as the fire consumed them. For the Dominion, it was the end. For humanity, it was justice. In the silence after the bombardment, Titan hovered above the ruins. No alien fleets remained. No defenses, no hope. The general's voice carried across the channels, heard by every soldier, every survivor, every trembling alien left alive. "This is the price of your arrogance," he said. "You wanted war. Humanity has given you eradication." Utter silence. When the guns fell quiet, nothing remained. The Dominion was gone, their empire erased from the stars. What had once been a mighty force was now only ashes drifting in space. Humanity had not just survived. They had destroyed. On Titan's bridge, the officers stood in silence. Victory had come, but it carried no joy. They had won by becoming something darker than they had ever imagined. Yet deep down, they knew it was the only way. The general looked out at the broken capital world one last time. His voice was heavy, but final. "War is over. The Dominion is no more." The galaxy had changed forever. The name of the Dominion was erased. And in its place, one truth remained. Do not ask for war with humanity, for what you will receive is utter eradication. The stars were quiet again. For the first time in months, no alien fleets prowled in the dark. No Dominion broadcasts filled the air with threats. Space, once painted with fire and wreckage, lay still. The war was over. Humanity had won. But victory did not feel like joy. On Earth, bells rang in cities, crowds gathered in the streets, and fireworks lit the skies. Families hugged, soldiers were welcomed home, and leaders declared the end of the greatest war in human history. Yet beneath the cheers was silence, an emptiness that no celebration could erase. Everyone knew how much had been lost. Mars still carried scars, its colonies half in ruins. Saturn's rings were shattered, broken into drifting clouds of dust. Mining stations, research outposts, even peaceful farms across the system had been wiped away. Millions of lives were gone, and billions had seen horrors they would never forget. The price of survival. On Titan's bridge, the general stood alone. The massive dreadnought had led humanity to victory, but even he could not escape the weight of it. His officers had gone to rest, his soldiers were celebrating, but he remained silent, staring into the void. A young officer approached him quietly. "Sir," she said, "we won. The Dominion is gone. Why do you not smile?" The general's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Because I know the cost. We did not just defeat them. We erased them. And now we must live with what that means." The officer said nothing. She understood. Victory had come, but it had changed them. Humanity had become harder, colder, and perhaps more dangerous than ever before. The broken enemy. In the ruins of the Dominion's worlds, silence reigned. No fleets answered distress calls. No leaders rose to speak. Entire cities lay in ash, their people scattered or dead. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled with iron claws, crushing every race in their path. Now they themselves had been erased. Among the few survivors, whispers spread of the humans, the unstoppable warriors who came from a single blue world. The survivors called them many names. The erasers, the storm, the end. Fear of humanity had become legend overnight. The question of the future. On Earth, leaders met again in the same hidden chambers where the war had begun. They no longer spoke of defense. Now their voices carried new debates. Should humanity rebuild quietly, or should they rise as the new power of the galaxy? Some argued for peace. "We fought to survive," one leader said. "Let us not become the monsters we destroyed." Others argued for strength. "The galaxy knows us now," another answered. "If we do not stand tall, others will come. We must be ready. We must lead." The general listened but remained silent. He knew the truth. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The Dominion was gone, but the galaxy was still wide and filled with unknown dangers. What humanity became next would decide everything. The people's voice. Across the world, ordinary people spoke too. Some wanted only peace, to return to the days before the war. Farmers wished to plant crops again. Teachers longed to see children laughing without fear, and families prayed never to hear alarms in the night again. But others whispered of revenge not yet finished. They remembered the millions killed, the cities burned, the screams that echoed in space. "Never again," they said. "Never again will we wait for the sky to fall. If any enemy rises, we will strike first." The war had not only united humanity, it had changed them forever. A child's question. One evening, as the general walked through the rebuilt streets of Earth's capital, a small child ran up to him. Her eyes were wide, her voice innocent. "Sir," she asked, "will the aliens ever come back?" The general looked down at her. For a long moment he did not answer. He thought of Mars burning, of Titan's cannons roaring, of the Dominion capital reduced to ash. Finally, he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "If they ever return," he said softly, "they will find nothing waiting for them, nothing but silence and ashes." The child nodded, comforted by his words, but the general's heart felt heavy, because deep inside he knew it was not the end. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, other civilizations watched, some with fear, some with anger, and some, perhaps, with plans of their own. The legend of humanity. And so the story spread. Across distant systems, among hidden colonies and fearful survivors, the tale of humanity was told. They said Earth was small, but its people were giants. They said humans did not just fight wars, they ended them. They said if you ever wished for conflict with Earth, you should first dig your own grave. The Dominion had wanted war. Humanity had given them eradication. And in the silence that followed, the galaxy remembered.